Hello all and welcome to the Mug Life DIY. My name is Julia and I am so glad you decided to stop by my channel. And today I have 5 Easter springtime DIYs using all thrifted items. So I went to a couple of different local thrift stores around my area and just kind of picked up a random assortment of goodies that I thought I could transform and bring some new life to them. Now, a fun part about today's video is I am participating in this really fun Fab Five collab hosted by my friends over Crafting Cousins, Kay and Trish. They are amazing and they teamed up with us 5 ladies that we are going to all kind of hop and lead to each other. Now, if you're not familiar with the Fab Five hop, what it is I am personally challenged by a perfect place to start with using a thrifted item. And I challenged Christina Elizabeth to use a fun little item. So I will have in all of my description box the link for the next video for you to hop to, and also everyone else participating in this collab. And we are doing a $50 prize for Amazon. Who doesn't love some Amazon? And all you have to do is all you have to do to win the $50, visit every single one of the videos in the hop and comment on which is your favorite project or just how excited you are, anything that sparks your interest and why you're so excited about each of the videos. That's it, and we will choose the winner from those 5 videos. All right, so let's jump back into the project. I found this box and literally paid, I think it was like $1.25 because yes, Military Mondays. So I didn't really know what to do with it originally, but I decided to kind of take it apart a little bit. That little frame wasn't liking, but I really liked the wood tones. So I just kind of, after I took that frame off, had to restain that one section. And I did I did 3 coats of stain. And you can kind of see there's a little bit of a leftover lighter stain, but I just watered down some of my paint because I don't actually have any stain. Now I picked up these stencils and y'all, I am still so bad at stenciling. I have been practicing and I just wanted to kind of stencil and practice. So I used a leftover makeup sponge that I had because it had a pointy edge and I thought that would make it a little bit easier to apply my paint. And these stencils were sticky. So I thought, oh, this will be great. I won't bleed. I'll do lightly. I'll tap. And I still had some issues. So here's the first side. And I vaguely remembered someone telling me, oh, you should use Mod Podge. So I decided to attempt it again. So I added some Mod Podge to my other side and began from there. Now, after my Mod Podge had dried, I began applying my stencil down to the Mod Podge. And I was so hopeful. Y'all. So I need some tips and pointers. Let me know what other things I can try or what I did wrong. But I really do love this stencil. I thought it was super pretty. But I'm just not a fan of how it still bled through. I don't know if I should try a different stencil brand, a different brush, I don't know. The Mod Podge definitely did help a little bit with the bleeding, but I decided it's okay. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going for my eclectic bohemian rustic look, and the bleeding is totally fine. So I added one more layer of a different stencil just to add a little bit of variety and texture. So I applied that right above my little bottom piece and did the same. I dabbed all the way on and let that dry. I also wanted to add a little bit I wanted to add a little bit of a contrast. So I took some of my Dollar Tree ribbon, it's more like a raffia ribbon. It's very, very lightweight and textured. I'm not sure if you guys have found this, but I love this color. It's a very natural kind of tone, and I just measured all the way around and just lightly glued the edges all the way around the bottom section of my little box. We're going to jump right into our second project. This one I was so nervous about because this was the project, y'all. I found this cute little wheelbarrow for $3.98, also Military Monday, and I just disassembled it and I lightly sanded it and began the painting process. Now, with that leftover paint that I did with the stain, I started going over my little green section of my wheelbarrow. Now, I probably painted about 4 or 5 coats. If you didn't want to do 4 or 5 coats of paint, probably just paint it or spray paint it. But here I go, trying to go the extra and wanted it to kind of look like a wood grain stain. So that's why I wanted to just use what I had. Yes, I know. And then I went ahead and painted the green little wheel black because I thought that stood out nicely with the brown. Now, even after sanding down that little stencil that was on it, it was a little bit difficult to cover. So after I did 1 coat of my paint, I did have to go back and kind of do a couple of techniques. So I'm going to tell you how I covered this little stencil that I don't know what in the world they stenciled, what kind of paint it was, but y'all, this thing was like, it was on there. So after my first coat of my teal color had dried, I went over and added my white chalk paint with a sponge. I dabbed it on there to kind of give it a textured effect and let that get tacky. Not dry, but tacky. I had to do about 2 coats of my little blue color to get everything covered. But whenever you're covering something that's really hard to cover, if you add a texture or you're blending while something is still tacky, it gives a great coverage. Now, for the third project, yes, these are actually IKEA items that I found at the thrift store. My thrift store, for some reason, always has IKEA things that look brand new. So I'm not quite sure if people just return them or want to return them and don't, but yeah, you can remake this project. Now, the first attempt at painting it didn't work. It didn't stick. So I kind of lightly sanded down my little bucket. And after I sanded it down, I thought, that's a little bit too plain for me. So I added some Dollar Tree pop-up stickers on the top and on the bottom and thought, okay, now I'm going to try to paint my bronze color over it. It still wasn't sticking. So what I had to do next was take some of my Rust-Oleum white chalk paint and I dabbed it on. It's more like a stippling kind of effect. And I'm like, kind of liking this. I like the texture. I like the look. Wasn't quite a fan of the color, but that's what you get when you do what I was doing, struggling. So after that finally dried, I was able to go back over with my acrylic bronze paint and it totally ended up working. And I really loved it. I think it was turning out really well. And here you can see it's the Craft Smart. I believe I got this at Michael's and it was great. It ended up working really well. Now, even extra step, y'all know, I love using cinnamon to add rust and texture, and it just adds to it. But I gotta go another layer. I took some dark brown acrylic paint and just kind of dry brushed a few little strips and stripes and went with it. Now, here is that other little IKEA thing that I got at the thrift store. I think this was like $1.98, but I only paid like $1 for it because of my discount. And I stuffed my little bottom of my pot with a couple of plastic bags and adjusted it to the height that I wanted. And this this acts as a filler, and it also lifted up my plant so it wouldn't look so like bottom heavy. And then I just used some of my Dollar Tree Spanish moss and filled in the top. Now, my fourth project, I took this little bunny who was, I believe, a bank, and I paid probably 75 cents for him. And my friend Lisa, we went out shopping, and she was like, oh yeah, you should totally make a concrete bunny. And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? So I took some of my Rust-Oleum white chalk paint, and I gave all of those really pink layers a nice kind of coverage with my white paint. I let that dry. Then I took some of my gray chalk paint that I just used on my dresser makeover because I had a little bit left even after my daughter dumped it. So I used that gray paint to kind of mimic to look more like the concrete. Now you could just keep adding the layers of the white, but I didn't really want to paint my entire bunny with it, so that was just too much, y'all. Now I did add a little bit of not milk. Wow. What is it called, y'all? It's no. I'll think of it. I will, but now I can't think of it. And that really thickened my paint, and I kind of did it all over my bunny. Then I just dry brushed with my white chalk paint and kind of just added a little bit of texture and depth, and added just a few highlights here and there to my bunny. And my brain just started to work. Plaster of Paris. Yes. Okay. So that's how I thickened my chalk paint and added that layer. Now I did about 4 layers. This took forever to dry. I feel like there's got to be an easier way, but this thing dried all day. I was using my heat gun and everything, but just know, after you add these layers, this thing is so hard. It actually did feel like concrete. So I think that project was well worth it. Now, my final project is something would be amazing that you could do with your kids or even just for yourself, is a wonderful little Easter project. This little pot I paid $1/4 for, and it's that terracotta, but I wasn't quite digging the orange right now for Easter. So I had a little bit of it's like a baby blue color, and I just had a little bit left from a previous project. So I just painted all the way down lightly, kind of dry brushing it just to add a little bit of color variance. And I really liked the orange and the blue. I thought this was a nice color combo. And I went outside and took 2 little branches from my tree, and I decided to just use some jute cord or jute twine, and I wrapped them together in the cross shape and tied my jute in a knot. Now I used some of my Spanish moss to kind of fill in that little section of my pot, and I stuck my cross in there. You could use any rocks or anything else that if you would want to weigh it down, but I didn't have any left over. And then I just added a little bit of my greenery moss just at the top, just because I wanted to brighten it up a little bit. And I also added a jute down to the bottom of my vase just to kind of add a little bit. And I took this little berry garland. I have found it only this time of year, but I love this like light pale purple that it is. And I just think it added just such a beautiful color combination, the blue and the purple. And then I draped another little short section right in the middle of the cross. And here is how all of my projects turned out. I love decorating my dining room. It's one of my favorite. And just for Easter, I think it brightened up this space so much. This fun planter could totally be used all year round. I love all year round decor. And the cross is a beautiful little centerpiece of my collection. And it's just a wonderful reminder, especially if you do have kids, you can do this project with them and just talk about what the sacrifice that Jesus did for us. And that is just a great reminder of Easter time. But I just believe all of it just works together. It's so fun, it's bright, it's colorful, it's spring. Let me know which one was your favorite project. I love talking to you guys. And if this is your first time checking out my channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by, and I hope you guys will stay a while. Until next time, guys, subscribe to my channel. That's it, and